Come on. Good dog. Good boy. Oh. That's streaky. Drop. Drop. Good boy. Ah. Good dog.
On the 25th of January 2024, my dog Lenny passed away. Less than a week beforehand, my family and I woke up to find that Lenny could barely walk, and eventually he couldn't walk at all. We never found out exactly how it happened, but to us it didn't really matter. For the following 6 days, we cared for him as best we could, carrying him when he needed to go outside and helping him eat and drink. I won't sugarcoat it. It was hard. Really hard. Something about that week lit a fire inside of me. I couldn't stop thinking not about just Lenny, but about how every single one of us has such a fragile mortality. With all of this on my mind, I knew I needed some sort of outlet, some way to express these thoughts that were dominating my conscience. So this is it. This documentary is my story, my own personal journey to understanding death and the grieving process. Heading into this, I knew that if I wanted to understand death and grief on a deeper level, I needed to seek out people that specialise in the field, and who better to ask than those with a strong religious background. So I went and found 2 of these people, both from distinct faiths, who I hoped could grow my own personal understanding of death, and enlighten me with how to handle and process Lenny's passing.
My name is Simon Holloway. I work here at the Melbourne Holocaust Museum as the manager of adult education and academic engagement, which basically means I oversee the development and delivery of programs for tertiary groups and corporate groups, as well as tours for members of the general public.
And my name is Bhante Bodhidhaja. Bhante means venerable, and Bodhidhaja is my monastic name. I'm originally from Switzerland, but I've been here in Australia since 2010, and I ordained with Ajahn Brahmawamso, with Ajahn Brahm, that some people might know, over in Western Australia. Well, I mean, one of the fundamental beliefs is that death is something very normal, that death is something very natural, that death is something which is going to happen to all of us. And impermanence is one of the features in Buddhism that we talk about a lot, and that is important. One thing that Buddhism teaches, which is probably a little bit different from other religions, is that we are getting reborn, that this life is just kind of like one episode, if you want to call it, of what's happening to us.
Generally speaking, and this is quite a generalization, but generally speaking, Jewish literature places very little emphasis on anything that happens after death. So there is very little on life after death, or the afterlife, or the resurrection of the dead in the era of the Messiah, all of which are ideas that are treated within classic Jewish texts, but are generally given fairly short shrift. Most of the emphasis is placed on how we live our lives in this world. One of those strengths in terms of the ways in which Jewish custom and law mandates this staged process of grief is that it involves community. A person cannot do it on their own. There might be a desire that some people might have when their grief is great, that they want to withdraw altogether from the world and just be left entirely to themselves. The fact that other people need to be involved with the execution of these different practices means they're never able to really just disappear. There are people who are looking after them.
So the first important part is that we start from where we are at. So there is no point going to the teachings and saying, look, it says this and this is the ideal, and I have to feel this way, or I have to see the world in this way. It's very unhealthy. It's very unhelpful. So if someone dies, that was very important and was very close to us. No wonder we feel a sense of loss. We feel a sense of our purpose is gone. We don't know what to do because we were connected to that animal, to that person. We had so many habits around being with that person, calling that person, doing stuff with that person, and suddenly all that disappears. And then, of course, we feel like there is a hole. And I probably would say that's one aspect of grief. Feeling that something we had, something we treasured, something we valued was taken away from us. And then it's very important to acknowledge that, to give it space, and to work with that emotion, to work with that feeling within our own hearts and go like, yes, it hurts. Yes, I feel lost. Yes, it is difficult. And by acknowledging, we're already taking away some of the guilt, some of the shame, some of the uncomfortable, unhelpful feelings that make it stronger, that make it harder to bear. But then, of course, in Buddhism, we are encouraged to see the bigger picture and to understand, why do we feel a sense of loss? Why do we feel sad? As I mentioned before, because we've lost something we've valued. And that allows you to shift from a sense of loss, from a sense of grief, towards a sense of gratitude, of being so lucky that we were able to spend time with that person, with that pet, what that meant for us. And I see that change in people quite sometimes when they come and talk to me about these things. They are very grief-stricken, they're having a hard time, and they're crying. But if we can somehow shift those tears from sadness to a little bit more and more every time, tears of gratitude, tears of how wonderful, how lucky am I that I was able to spend this time with this person. But the word that came up for me, which I think is the most useful one, is learning. It's all about learning from the experiences you have. You learn from the beautiful experiences, you learn from the boring experiences, you learn from the difficult experiences. So life is basically like a school. You get tested in different subjects, in different situations. And with time, you fail every now and then, but then you study a little bit more, so to speak, and you come and take the exam again, and then you pass. And that's basically life in a nutshell, in a kind of Buddhist way of looking at it.
Before I officially wrap this up, I want to add my own 2 cents. If there's anything I've learned from all this, it's that death is an incredibly nuanced thing, so it's hardly my place to lecture anyone about it. So instead of attempting to address it myself, I hand the reins over to you, the viewer, to find your own answer. Because at the end of the day, that's what the thesis of my film really is. To demonstrate that death doesn't have some one-size-fits-all solution. For me personally, I resonated most with the Buddhist perspective, and I believe as a result of that, I've been able to make my peace with Lenny's passing. But I also know that approach may not work for everyone, and that's okay. What is important though, is that you find an answer that works for you, whatever it may be.